no, that's not true. I do have the facilities. I think I lack the components to construct. Right, so I would have some form of coffee. I'd have some form of a coffee machine. Yeah. I would lack some milk, and I'd have to, probably give it a wash because those things. How frequently are you washing those type of coffee machines? You're not.
Oh,
really.
to desalinate the coffee machine, it's a multi-hour affair. Yeah, you gotta put the solution in. You gotta run all the solution through it. I think like twice, and then you gotta run like 5 settings of water all the way through it. Drain the tank like 4 or 5 times.
Okay, so that's
in theory. That's how you desalinate a coffee machine. Not that I, am an expert.
Not that you really actually know.
Yeah.
Too bad Henry's in Mongolia. He could help you with the milk.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know how stocked he'd be either, Yanko. So we would have to see there.
Henry's always stocked for milk.
Well, look, I'm not sure. If you've been gone for a couple of days, Yanko, the milk may have gone off, unless you're talking like a milk alternative, maybe like an oat milk or an almond milk or something that doesn't represent traditional milk, long life milk.
Lactose-free milk, powdered milk, perhaps, condensed milk.
Condensed milk's good.
Yeah, condensed milk. It goes in Vietnamese coffee, and it turns it into a banger.
It's very, very...
sweet, thick, viscous.
I was just going to go with delicious, but those all work too.
Yeah. All right. So there's that.
I learned something last night, by the way, gentlemen. So I got back,
We learned a lot of things last night. Can I just throw that out there, Chad? We don't have to talk about. We learned a lot of. Yanko and I were just chatting a little bit before we went live. There was a lot of information that came in last night. Last night was a crazy night for information.
Well, it was a Tuesday after all, and normally we get updates on Tuesdays. So that does make sense that there's lots of things going on. Where was I going with this?
You found out something last night.
Oh, okay. So I've got back. I've gone into my apartment and stuff, and I keep hearing this noise, and it's like a dung dung. And so think about it, it's probably like 9:30 at night, and outside it's not a super main road, but it's still a pretty busy road, and cars will be going up there, maybe every 30 seconds, a minute, something along those lines. That's the level of frequency. I kept hearing this noise, ka-dung dung, and I was like, what the fuck is going on? So I'm walking around checking if all the windows and whatnot are open. Essentially, there's like a construction site going on there, and like a metal fencing has fallen over, and instead of someone getting out of their car and picking up the metal fencing and just placing it back to where it was, people would just drive over it, so it would create the noise, ka-dung dung. I thought I was losing my mind that something was falling apart in the apartment, but just nobody would move the sign. And that went on all night until today.
Until you walked down and moved the sign.
Well, I did investigate because I was like, what's going on here? But that's when all the tradespeople were starting.
You're like, all right, fine. 10 hours of this bullshit is enough.
It was an interesting noise,
Yeah.
And when I thought there was something wrong with the apartment. But no, there was nothing wrong, just a problem with the street. So that's my story.
That's
not
a
the
good
strongest story, but it is a real life story.
I can build upon that if we want to go down like inconvenient stories. This is a nice home ownership story.
All right.
I've had quite a week as a homeowner. We got new carpet down here in the studio, which included some stairs down to the basement. Well, the carpet people got here and they realized that the risers on the stairs were really flimsy, needed to be replaced. So I had to have a whole new construction crew come in to do that really quick. I had my water heater shit the bed. I have no hot water in the house at the moment except for the kitchen sink.
Oh dear.
And then we have some clogs going on in our plumbing system, some like mineral buildup deposits. So every day is a new day of which sink isn't going to work. It was Jane's master bathroom sink last night. It was the kitchen bar sink yesterday morning. The kitchen sink was before that. Our shower in the bathroom only has like 30% capacity on water pressure. What else? There was one more thing. Oh, I got a new air conditioner installed as well, so I had a whole new construction crew around for that. And then last night I got home from running errands, and I was so excited. I got all my work done. I was gonna go play video games for like an hour and a half while I didn't have the baby, while the baby was with the babysitter. So it was like the only hour and a half I had, and I walked up the stairs to sit down on my gaming PC, and the wind had blown a window out of its frame and into my gaming room, and it shattered on the ground. So I stepped up, and there was just a shattered window all in my gaming room, and I had to clean that up. That was my day yesterday.
That sounds exhausting.
That's been 3 days. Buy a house, they said. It'll be fun, they said.
You got scammed, maybe.
That's what I feel like.
They didn't tell you about the mineral deposits.
No, they didn't even say a fucking word.
They
about
should
the
have a
mineral
house.
deposits.
They should have a mine. Could be making bank, Jason. Just repurpose the building.
I know. I should. I'd just tear it all down and start over.
Feels too many things to have to worry about right there.
Yeah, the only thing worse than that is like flying for 30 hours.
Yeah, you boys had the rough trip.
Potentially.
No, it was all right. It could be worse. It could always
It
be
could have
worse.
been worse. It definitely could have been
Well,
worse.
it's the eternal question whenever like you get to an event and someone's like, "Oh, how is the travel going?" It's like it was travel. Like nothing, like no disaster happened. I didn't get like canceled or delayed, but it was travel. It's like it can only be so good.
Sometimes there can be fun stories, right? But it feels less frequent, the fun stories.
The longer we go, the less fun there is.
But maybe you have to make your own fun along the way.
You know what it is though, is we're no longer traveling to every event together. Remember, like back in the day, we used to just like pick up an event like in like the last week of, like you'd be at an event in like Poland, and then on like the second to last day, everyone would get a message to go fly off to like fucking, I don't know, Turkey to go to fucking Belek or some shit,
Yeah,
it's funny. It happened now with the Mongolia tournament. Like a lot of people were contacted last minute.
Yeah.
And then you had, I think Josh was contemplating, from Australia, does he go home? Does he go to Mongolia? He's looking at flights. He's like, this is all looking like awful. So he did the thing where he just like sent them a rate that would.
That's basically a no. That's like, I'm not going to do this, but if you pay me, if you're insane enough to pay me this much money, I like that. That's a great strategy.
But those were some fun. I mean, we did tell a couple of stories about that when, we were all going from one event to the other. And then it's like, all right, like we can, people end up being on the same flights traveling together. I traveled actually with Alex to Australia and back. I mean, our paths diverged in Istanbul, but outside of that, it was me and him all the way.
It's been a while since the three of us did an episode, I feel. It's, we're all back together.
Well.
This is great. How was Australia? Anything cool happen? Not with the travel, just with the actual location Chad, you had Rush there for a week. You guys certainly had to get up to some shenanigans.
Yeah, Rush was a challenge. I think, Jason, that's the way you'd put him. You get a good 5 days of Rush, but once you're heading into day 7 or 8, you go, what is my life?
He's just lost his motivation to do anything, hasn't he, at that point?
It's a lot to put up with, but we did make it through. There was just a lot of pie consumption, so just I was getting really into the pie territories, having a pastry every day. Lots of driving. We went, but where we went, it was fucking terrible weather. We still went for a swim though. We were getting completely rained on. We went down to this beach at the bottom of Australia, and we were like, well, we're here anyway. So it was miserable weather, but it was like a protected pool. So we went for a swim anyway in the rain. People looking at us like we're a bunch of idiots, which was fair enough. It was raining. Not the most lovely of days to be out.
There was a good judgment is pretty good of those people.
Yeah.
They got pretty good judgment over there.
But no, it's just like when you're down there, and Rush is never going to go to a place like that again. It may as well, right? You're making your own fun in the situation because you can't do too much.
This is just Chad saying, even if we had a tournament in Perth, I'm not fucking doing this thing with Rush ever again. This was his first and last time he's gonna get to experience this, so might as well.
Well, it's so far. Like it was like a 4.5 hour drive to get down there, right? So it wasn't like I wanted to take him to a place called Esperance, but I don't think it would have worked out with the amount of days we had. Plus, it was school holidays and going into the Easter weekend. So there was a lot of going on. But the most of it was good to be home, good to be in the weather, good to eat the food, and then go to Melbourne so you don't have to worry about jet lag. It's only 2 hours ahead over there. And then it was good. Everything was nice. Alex and I had to do a lot of tourism content for Victoria. So we had to go around and I'm having to talk about things like I know what the fuck I'm talking about. I'm like, I've got no idea what I'm saying, mate. I'm not from here. I'm from 3.5 hours away on a plane. So lots of content. What else did we do? There was the show match. The final was great. But overall, the hotel was awesome. It was really good. Had a nice quality of life with it, which, talking about that seems like such I don't know what the word is. It feels like it shouldn't be such a topic, but it is when you're in hotel rooms all the time and you have, spaces a little bit bigger and you have more amenities and stuff.
Yeah, it's amazing how much that shit can change your mentality in an event.
It's also why I like the location for a boot camp, because it's not hotel rooms that it has. It's like small apartments. So every room has a small kitchen. Some have a living room area separated from the bedroom. Because, if you're going in between tournaments to do a boot camp so you don't have to go back to your own continent, it might be helpful to sort of just break the rhythm a little bit. Some guys like to make at least their own food in terms of like breakfast or something and just have a slightly different dynamic, so Can be
And
good.
that would be the ENAT Boot Camp, state-of-the-art esports facility in Belgrade, Serbia, enat.gg. That is enat.gg.
Nice one, Jason. Appreciate that.
Gotcha.
Might actually just clip this and use it
Yeah, there
for
we go.
promotional purposes. But yeah, I mean, Australia is awesome. It's always a pain in the ass to get there, man, but the vibes are so good once we're down there. It was the first time in Melbourne. You know, I don't want to offend anyone from Melbourne, but it's like pretty much, to me, I didn't know, there's not much difference to Sydney, right? Like, it's a cool city, places to go. Sydney has a slightly better beach, it feels like when you go to Bondi or something, but definitely a lot of cool places outdoors to hang out. Great coffee down there in Melbourne, from someone who drinks it very rarely, but and doesn't
Chad's
know
been talking
anything
about the
coffee.
Australian coffee for years.
But that's what
now.
people ask me there, like, hey, how do you like our coffee? It's like, they take it as a point of pride. It's like, I don't know, man, I drink it for the effect, not for taste. I got to go to KBBQ a couple of times, which for us is, huge deal.
Basically a
huge
nightclub
deal.
where we went. Fucking hell.
Yeah, it was crazy. We went there on the day we landed, me and Alex. Like, we landed at 7 p.m. and at 9 we went to KBBQ with Chad. And it was the loudest KBBQ place I've ever
Hell
been
yeah.
to. Like, food was great, and everything. We went to an Aussie football game with Chad where he was, again, struggling to pretend that he knows all the rules and everything. It's like we talked a little bit about this in the last episode. It's like baseball for Australia. Like, it doesn't feel like
Sure.
people care too much about the game. They go there to have some beers, some food, and so on. But yeah, it's always like a lot of fun. Tournament was great. We'll get into that, I guess, a little bit later. I was just thinking about what I tweeted and said on the last episode that, next time they want to do a major in that time zone, Australia would be really cool. Like, the crowd always comes out. There's one thing, though, that bothers me about the Australian crowd. And you can answer this, Chad. Probably you know this better than I do, for sure. For example, it was like 12-10 on Mirage or something in the final. It's like a close game, and they're chanting, twist his dick, twist his dick, And it's like, sometimes I wonder, is it just like, do these guys even at some point like watch the game still, or is everyone piss drunk and like is just having a good time, or they're still watching the game and paying attention? It's just like they just do those stupid ass chants, because they're Australian.
I think it's probably a little bit from column A, a little bit from column B, right? Like, because you're in the way that I look at it is they always tend to be in groups. It seems like, or there's a lot of groups of people who go together at the Melbourne event, because you got all the bananas dressed up, or like all the row F people. So there's almost like these little groups within the crowd. And I guess whatever kicks off, like their little in-jokes or whatever, might have influence on what starts getting chanted and if it gets picked up or not. And then I also think it's just to be stupid too. So there's probably a bit of method to the madness, but also just for fun.
That was always our description of like Sydney, though, is like Australia was always a unique event because like you show up and it was like this just happens to be kind of like a party that Counter-Strike is just being played on the screens. Like it always felt that way when I was casting in Australia. It was like they're doing something entirely different from the game, and then like the game is on and they tune in, they have a great time with it, and they're an awesome crowd. But there's a whole other party going on in this building that has nothing to do with Counter-Strike.
I think it also makes sense. I mean, I'd imagine from a business standpoint, because there was a bigger crowd there than there is in Katowice. Like,
Yeah.
that's a lot of tickets you sell, so sure, it's far away and there's extra cost of getting people there, and I don't know what the costs are in terms of the equipment and everything, but I do imagine people run a tournament not to lose money on it, but to make money on it. So yeah,
This has got to be an annoying question. I'm sure, Chad, you were asked this in the past week, but a lot of the conversation every time we have an event in Australia and we see how good the environment is and how fun everyone's having and how cool it is to watch, the question always comes up, when's Australia getting their major? Do you think anything's moved on that front at all in any regard, or is that still kind of like one of those things that just seems far-fetched at the moment?
Well, I just think, look at how long it took before we had one in Shanghai,
China.
right?
Yeah.
So I wouldn't imagine it happened anytime soon. It's something that could happen. I think people coming in from Southeast Asia or China or whatnot to the event, there's also a lot of international students. So, I think that there's a decent enough want for it. But also, I think as far as the global viewership goes, it's something that you wouldn't expect to happen for, several years from now, just because the Shanghai one just happened. So I think even from a TO perspective, it's one of those scenarios where I don't think you even want to go back every year. You probably want to go back every second year, even though it makes good money. The factors that Yanko was pointing out, like the distance and probably having to ship a lot more stuff in at a higher cost.
Yeah.
It's probably good cost per head, right? In terms of money spent on tickets, I think would be pretty strong, as well as what's going on in the arena. But yeah, once every 2 years, I'd imagine from ESL would probably be the strategy. I think they learned from Rio, right? Rio just oversaturated too much Brazil.
That first step they had with the major and then the regular IEM event like 3 months later
was so quick.
Yeah, it was brutal. That was brutal for that one to come around.
And there was like, this is one of the things with it. I would imagine, yeah, you want to make money out of these things. If you can have a couple that you can return to every second year that guaranteed to be full, then you're not going to be risking, going into any of these events like ready to have a bit of a blowout and loss of revenue because the hunger's there. Like, what do we got Chengdu again later this year. Chengdu was pretty good when we were there last year, I thought. There was a decent turnout of crowd. It's another one that's in the time zone that's a bit strange. So, yeah, there is more catering to this time zone, this part of the world for sure.
Yeah. I'm with you with the understanding though that if anyone starts doing things in that time zone, it's going to be in China. I think that's the biggest obstacle. Is China's just going to be more valuable.
I think at this point, take anything you could get in this time zone, right? Because
sure, that's probably true.
But yeah, things seem like they're in a decent spot. It's not in a terrible spot, all things considered. Right now, we just had FlyQuest playing against Spirit. They got dumped. Well, actually, I don't want to say they got dumped. They actually had some close rounds.
Yeah.
The scoreline's not great. There were some close rounds, but if you just look at the scoreline, it's really not great. And there's some positive signs. Like, it looks like I was just watching it because Inz has only taken over the in-game leadership again recently, and Nedic's just joined. And if you look at the ultimate goal, is you can't do shit at these events. When you get an opportunity, you have to perform well for the VRS points. But they just did good in Melbourne. If they get a win in the lower bracket, which is still going to be tough, right? It's going to be against loser of FaZe Falcons, so that's not going to be an easy game either. But they look like they were running a lot of default and just really, really slow. So maybe they're just trying to get the default sorted now, so that by the time that they get to the major, they have a good base to go off of. Because they've been that's similar Counter-Strike as to what they're playing in Melbourne. Really slow, right? Taking their time, waiting out the nades, just having a lot of. But the mid rounds they struggle with, or closing the rounds when it's 2v2s and stuff, they're having a harder time. But I guess it's the change up seems to be good. I guess. Yeah,
well, I mean, whenever you make that change, there's always going to be like that period where I feel like you lose a lot of confidence in the finishing moves in rounds, right? When you have a new IGL, like that's the hardest thing for him to discover is figuring out where that weakness is to actually finish a round that you've put yourself in a good position. I feel like is usually the struggles with an IGL.
A bit more firepower in there now as well with Nedic, right? Nedic, Vexai, and then like Inz isn't a bad fragger at all. Like he's a good fragger. So Regali having some pop-up moments. It'll be interesting to see what happens. The major will be quite telling. It's just a shame that the Aussies didn't get 2 spots, right? I think that's something that you'd want to be battling for in the future with the 32-team major, making sure that you secure as one of the best teams from the region to get the 2 spots there. But it's all positive signs. I couldn't believe that there's 9,000 people who have gone to that event over the weekend from Australia to watch, all from around, right? It's a lot of people for that part of the world.
I think it's awesome. Obviously, like it's only positive. I think it's sick to see because I hope it continues because I like coming back to Australia every 2 years, every other year. It's awesome. So I mean, what a great turnout for the event. I think ESL's got to be happy about that.
Yeah, well, we don't really get any reports from stuff like that from any.
No, we don't. Really, we never know. We just assume.
Yeah, but
that's the fun part.
The viewers at home are happy, right? That's it. It was a good Counter-Strike. Yeah, it was a good venue. Rod Laver Arena, like a legendary venue. So I think it's, that kind of helps a bit as well, just with the name value of things. When you jump in an Uber there and like, oh, what are you here for? Oh, video games. Oh, where? And the Rod Laver, like, oh, really? So yeah.
Oh shit. Oh.
Yeah. So it's all positive. I did lose my voice, as you can probably hear, coming out of the coffin. So yeah, it's gonna happen, Jason. When you full send.
It is, especially when you have to do a full best-of-5 grand final and 4 of the maps are close and the last one goes into overtime. That's always going to wreck your voice a little bit.
Yeah, but you take those, don't you?
You take those. You make that trade any day of the week. That's why you get out of
bed in the morning.
Yeah, it really is. That's the final you dream of casting right there.
You're not there for a Vitality fucking Mongols game where it's putting the audience to bed.
That was brutal.
It's fucked. Some of the playoff games that have happened recently, like Lisbon, there was a couple of stinkers. up until the final, most of the games were stinkers. Like Mongols Liquid was probably the highlight of the playoff games. Other than that one,
Yeah.
just I think
Yeah, they
there
were all
wasn't a lot
2-0s.
otherwise.
They're all blowouts
Yeah.
as well. Well, I mean, I guess there's like a kind of, I guess, a point we could just start on with Melbourne is talking about the Mongols because it's now, what, back-to-back events where they've had disappointing results.
This time they made the playoffs at least, so I think
Yeah.
there was like an actual jump in form because before that, what was it, Bucharest and it was Lisbon.
Yeah, they got grouped.
They got grouped. Here they made it to the playoffs again. They looked right. The Liquid are just forming as a team, so there are some positive things to say about Liquid with Shui now in-game leading. But I think that was a decent stage win for the Mongols' confidence, especially with 9-10 taking over the fucking... because we were doing the podcast after this when we anchor. It was like a day after this game.
Yeah.
9-10 took over that game. He was
Yes.
a beast on Inferno. So I would actually say that event was a win for the Mongols. They then just got absolutely destroyed by Vitality. That was...
I think that's the bummer. Like, yeah, a good event in terms of placing, in terms of everything leading up to that point, but not even being competitive with Vitality, I think was a huge disappointment for me.
I think that though, like, gives us another point to leap off of, right? Because they were so dominant over somebody like the Mongols, and then the Falcons game was so close.
Yeah.
So what are the big differences here? Like, Mongols have so much more time together as a team, but then it's just that raw skill factor of the Falcons, and you're seeing the confidence coming out of them. Like that, I don't know. I think Vitality in the final as well probably didn't play their best Counter-Strike. I would say, maybe B- CS from them overall.
Do you think
They
that
didn't,
was?
but
Yeah, go on.
no, I mean, I think you could say that they weren't in their A game, but I don't think they played bad. I think
No, I don't think they
Falcons-
played bad. I just don't think they were playing to like the same peak. Like when they beat Mongols, they were just like obviously worse team, but also Giga like flow state looked like all the comms and everything were perfect. One of the issues that I think in the final was the comms looked a little bit off. Like information wasn't flowing. People weren't like covering each other in certain setups, getting like blindsided. There was like a couple of moments as well where Apex kind of just like spaced out. Flamesy was dead weight on entries. Zywoo obviously having clutches. I think Mezzy was for me an absolute rock. Like he had so many important like 2 to 3 kill holds just under pressure, buying time. Normally anchoring the A site on Nuke once we got super deep there. Was also really good on Mirage where they didn't win. I just don't think Vitality were in their like best team Counter-Strike flow state where everyone was contributing. It was a bit more heroics being necessary, a bit more, dragging them out of the mud type Counter-Strike.
Yeah, which is, I mean, in one sense,
I think it's a good thing.
It's really cool to see them have to win a game. Like,
Yes.
Like a team like Vitality that's had this start to the year, that's having this level of honeymoon. I guess one of the last things you'd say coming into a game or an event like this is like, we haven't really seen them tested. We haven't really seen them like punched in the face and have to come back. But then in this grand final, they were down 12-6 in the third map and they came all the way back. They won by heroics. They won by individual clutches. That 1v2 from Zywoo was insane. So all of a sudden that thing of has this team that is the best in the world properly been tested, and it's like, well, yeah, now you can't really fuck with that because they just came back in a best of 5 grand final on the stage down by 6 to force overtime. Like you've done an excellent job. So yeah, I think it's one of those things where now when you see Vitality win a match like this, you're just like, oh fuck, what is the weakness of this team? Which is, I think, a situation that every team that has been in this situation as Vitality over the years, we've always asked that. Like, you think Fnatic 2015 on their crazy run, it's like, how are we going to beat them? Astralis back in their peak form is like, how are we going to beat them? There's always teams that show up and like have this run of form where it's like, what the fuck is the weakness and how is anyone going to beat them? But, I mean, as much as positives as the grand final showed, it also showed us that there's some weakness and they can have an off game that teams can take advantage of. Now, not many teams have proven that they can take advantage of it outside of Falcons because of the massive skill gap. But that it's possible that Vitality run out of steam coming into the major, and that's their question. And I thought it was really cool seeing that from all the interviews after that win was just like, if we don't win the major, this means nothing. This really isn't that big of a deal if we don't win the major. The major is still king. So now you have a question of, is Vitality peaking a little bit early, and can they continue this run of form as everyone looks at them coming into the major?
Well, I think they can. I think it's more of a question, how will Falcons look, how will Spirit look, how will Mouse look by then, and all these other teams. Because I think, and this has been the case with any team, being on a run and starting an era, is like all the some of the big players around him and the big rivals are struggling at the time. I mean, that was the case when Astralis was having it. As I said, for every team you could make that argument a little bit, but you can see that these teams are trying. Obviously Falcons just added Monacy, Spirit. Whether they'll make an actual roster change for them, I was really excited to see them in Melbourne because they would have had time off to practice and everything, and now they're doing it at rivals, but you have Vitality and Falcons and Maus all coming in from Australia, so even if, let's say, Spirit beats Vitality and wins this tournament, there will always it'll always be like, yeah, but these guys just won the Grand Slam and came back from Australia. You need to do it at a different tournament. So I think Vitality, some of the more impressive things coming out of their camp is how well they've done managing sort of expectations and also not getting complacent and not taking things for granted, right? Like when you hear them talk about, you hear Flamesy give an interview or someone else, and they're talking about Lisbon, and it was important to sort of grind it out because it's been like 3 weeks on the road. So the fact that they're able to win a best of 5, all 5 maps, knowing how to approach it, right, when they're tired already and it's been a long couple of weeks, like that's impressive. Also, I mean, look at this. This final was just, it's just ridiculous. It's definitely the best 5th map out of any BO5 final ever. It's up there as the best final, I mean, in CS2. I think probably Shanghai still takes the cake because of how close that 3rd map ended up being out of nowhere and because it was a major. But still, it's crazy how they were able to not lose that game, right? Like not lose that final map. It looked like it was over. It was so many times it looked like it was all over, and then it wasn't. And sure, you can argue that Falcons screwed up some rounds that didn't really make sense, but it still takes for you to be able to capitalize on them if you're Vitality. And that's why I think for now they've done like such a huge task has been accomplished with finishing the Grand Slam, that now literally all they're going to be focused on is the major. Like, yeah, they're at rivals now. They obviously want to keep the streak alive. They want to play good CS, and they'll play without much pressure, and they can still go on and win it. But even if they lose, it won't be the end of the world. Same thing for Dallas. It's all about peaking at the major, making sure you don't get too exhausted by the time major comes in, that you not feeling fatigued from attending all these events and all the travel. Like, you want to be at 100% for the major. And I don't think that's going to come as a surprise to anyone. And it feels like, as I said, they've been doing a great job of peaking at the right time and conserving some energy still, even with the crazy schedule and all of that. And I think they'll obviously be feeling confident. So yeah, I don't think they're going to drop off significantly by the time the major comes along, but I do expect other teams to get better.
Bro, for how much we want to praise Vitality for winning that series, I like there's no one in Counter-Strike who has more heartbreaking losses than Nico, right? Especially in finals. Like, on one level, I'm just like, how is this guy still going? Like, how many close, brutal, depressing losses can one man handle? It's just another one. Like, it's got to feel terrible if you're Nico and that game ends and you're just like, what the fuck, again? We let them come back again?
I mean, even more so when you didn't play well in the final. I mean, he had his moments, but that's not the level that, he wants to see from himself even, right? Like, he expects more from himself, especially in that grand final on Nuke, for example, on the final map. I mean, as I said, he had his moments, but there needs to be more of them. I mean, he was the lowest rated player on T side with all the rounds that have been played. I mean, when I saw that screenshot, that was crazy. Tessus had 31 kills, and the next player had 13. Like, he had 2.05 rating on T side, and then the next guy had 0.93, and that was Magus.
Oh my god, that's
he had
actually
more
gross.
kills on T side than Rops and Zaivu combined. Like,
this is so stupid. I don't even
so
see
many. Like, and Nico had the fewest at 8, right? And that's just he had 8 kills in. Well, okay, it was 42 rounds, but I don't know how many of them were T side. But let's say have maybe 12, 20 rounds, 19, 18 rounds, whatever, to only have 8 kills. Like, you just need to do better. And both him and Monesi needed to do a little bit better. Nico was their best player on CT side, but, you know, it's just one of those games where I'm sure he'll feel like he needed to do more. There was, of course, again, a Deagle round on the map, where it's just I'm watching this, and it was on him in the arena when he was still on stairs, and they're coming down. It's like, man, can't he just put it on the guy's head? Like, get one kill here and it's over. And then, of course, he's in windows, and ZywOo's jumping around, and Nico's trying to shoot him in his back, jumping, and he can't really connect. And the round falls apart. Like, that was the one, like, you felt it was over. They got 2 clean entries on a half pipe, they get the bomb site, and still somehow lose the round. It was crazy.
That round is another, like, indicator there of, like, Vitality not playing their best CS and being rattled or whatever, because, like, in that round, the Tech9 kill on Apex in the vent, like, he has no idea they can already be so close, which just says that that the information's not flowing, right? The assumptions are being made. Comms aren't going through, because you can't be giving away kills like that.
To me, it was clear on the 5th map, the pressure started to get to them, because you saw even on the T side at the beginning, some of the things that they were calling felt pretty weak. I mean, you threw smokes outside, sure, and the second wave of smokes, but no one really is putting any sort of real pressure, and then you just go for an A execute, right? Like, I don't know. It felt like it wasn't very difficult for Falcons to read Vitality, you know, on their CT side. Hence the 9-3 scoreline in the end, right? Like, also, I think Magisk denying ZywOo the 1v3 clutch in the pistol, that was huge in terms of momentum and everything. But obviously, as the game went on and Vitality started stringing rounds together, actually ZywOo bailing them out a couple of times, you know, then it picks up with the other guys as well, and it's starting to look more like Vitality.
Yeah, it was entertaining. I think the broader conversation you were having, Jason, to kind of kick this whole thing off about their goals and stuff, and for the major and everything like that. I guess you then have to look at who are the teams who are competing for that, right? Obviously, Falcons, this is just the first event with Monesi. They had 1.5 days worth of practice. So they're in like a 30-day ramp into the major. It's more than 30, but I think it's like 30 to the start of stage 1 or whatever, right? Mouse, we're going to see now, right? They're playing right now against Pain. We'll get to see like what kind of Counter-Strike they bring in this event. I don't think anyone is that. It seems like Na'Vi and FaZe for me are no longer in the conversation.
Yep.
And Spirit, who's been on like a really long break. So those are the teams who are around Vitality, who are within like the striking distance on any given Sunday, depending on a lot of different circumstances, right? So your Spirit, Mouse, Falcons, that's where we're at. It doesn't feel like we'll get another team. Oh, I guess we haven't seen Eternal Fire player in a while, but they're Aurora now, and they're not great in arenas.
I'm sorry, but I think when you see Falcons and what they do, like in such a short amount of time, in a way, and we've kind of been I feel like we've been fooling ourselves. I think we've all been lying to ourselves for the past like 6 months or so, that Mongols could win a tier 1 tournament, or that Aurora can actually go and win a tier 1 tournament online, or actually not even that, maybe they can, but that they could be a contender in the long term. I think we've just been fooling ourselves.
I think that spoke to the weakness of the field, though, right?
Yes, exactly. I think it was more that. It was all these, like, some of the big names or teams that had some big players were struggling and are going through different problems, while because of the results that Aurora was able to make or Mongols were able to make, you're sort of just expecting it. Like, that's how it's kind of supposed to go, right?
Well, that could have gone another way, though, Yanko.
In reality, you can't do it without superstars, right? Any tournament, big-ass tournament, whether it's the major, whether it's Cat or Cologne, something that has a lot on the line, right? A high-pressure environment, your players need to deliver. You're not going to call yourself to a tournament win like that, right? Like, you're gonna need someone to pull off the shit that ZywOo does, or that Robs does, or that Monesi does, or that Nico does, or that Dong does, right? Like, you're not going to win a tournament like that by having 5v3s all the time because all your openings are working and you're reading your opponent
I think
perfectly.
at the time, though, they could have, right? I think, like that, to your point, like, I think at the time when we were so short on other names contributing, right? It was clear at the very start that, like, Spirit was still there, right? Mao's with a surprise. Vitality kind of the level that they jumped to immediately. And then the rest of the guys like FaZe, Na'Vi, G2, Falcons weren't good at the start of the year either. Couldn't get their shit together. So then like the Mongols and then Eternal Fire / Aurora would be taking those spots. So they both had opportunities to they were doing the right thing. They were getting to the playoffs, but then they just couldn't perform in the playoffs. So
because they don't have the guys.
Yeah, but at the time when you're talking about like the lack of experience that they have and everything, because there's so little experience on the stage for any of these teams, right? It's a whole different way that you have to play Counter-Strike. But it could have gone one or two. It could have gone the other way. Like they could have got on stage and Wox. It could have been in the form that he was in with Mouse Sports, and Centaurus might not have had a hard time.
But they were never gonna beat Vitality or Spirit. Like Eternal Fire's best chance was Pro League that one time against Navi, and they had them. But that was in Malta in a studio. Like it didn't have all the pressure around it. We saw them crumble against actually the Mongols in Katowice.
Yeah.
Mongols crumbled against Maus in Shanghai. Right, like it just sort of keeps, and they can get better with that. My point being, probably their A game is not good enough, to beat, let's say,
they would need to catch Vitality on a bad day.
Game they have to catch them on a really bad day. Like
I think they could beat Spirit. I don't think they could beat Vitality, and I'm not convinced any longer that they could beat Falcons. But I think if you have I don't know. I don't think we necessarily lied to ourselves. I think you guys just outlined it perfectly. At the start of the year, a lot of the teams that we expected to be strong were weak, so these guys got to kind of take advantage of that and climb the rankings. But they made finals, they made semifinals, and in that field at the moment, I think we had them kind of accurately written as they've got to get over this inexperience hump, but the opportunity to win a trophy is certainly there. Moving forward, I think they're going to be good. That's
closing now.
Yeah, they're going to. Yeah, that opportunity is certainly probably fully closed now.
Yeah,
but it's still a team that can do damage, and depending on how the bracket plays out, right? Like you never know if Vitality gets matched up with Spirit in a quarterfinal, Vitality gets taken out, and then all of a sudden you have kind of this weird road where it's a much more doable. For the
but that's all. That's all.
That's all.
Upon asterisk upon asterisk.
Yeah.
I'm just like. It's my job and all, but I am getting aroused.
Oh, shucks, it's my job, sir.
No, but I'm getting aroused only for like Falcons Vitality, Spirit Vitality, Spirit Falcons potentially, right? Like those are the games that I want to see. Mouse is the one that's like.
But did you want to watch Falcons versus those names before this tournament?
Well, not necessarily, but actually after I saw them in Bucharest, yes. Even if, let's say, they played again with Dexter, because there they played really good CS.
Yeah, so but that's only within the last what, like 3 weeks?
Yeah, I know, but it's also that with guys, I don't know if you want to talk about Falcons with m0NESY or without, if that's, because of your hypothesis.
But my point is merely they're only in the conversation recently. Like
I know, but my point is that if they get their sort of floor sorted, right, which it seems like they did, and they're playing like proper Counter-Strike, you always need that. If you don't have that, players are not helping. Superstar players are not helping you. They're not saving you, right? Like you're not going to be able to find results on a consistent basis. But if you have that, then the players can give you that extra 5% that you need to be able to beat the other team and lift the trophy, right? And I think with guys like Nico and m0NESY, obviously, you have that ceiling and you have that potential. I don't know if you have that potential with 9-10 and Senzu.
Well,
I don't know if Woxic and Xantares can actually play on that high of a level on the stage, like consistently.
I think if you want to take that angle to it, I'm with you. Sure, I'm probably for Aurora. I think you need like a third kind of player who can make those sort of things happen. Xantares and Woxic can both do it. I think the more promising one is
Cardio have both been pretty good.
Yeah, but they don't have that. They don't have that like next high level to step up to completely turn a game around. I feel.
And also,
like, Locadio will hit a heater, but he won't just like bust out some miraculous moment to like string a clutch, to change the fortune of a run. I think Mongols probably have the best chance of having those players that you're looking for, considering how fucking young they are. Like 9-10, Mizuno, Senzu, as they get a little bit older, a little bit more experience. I think that team has a future in it at the very least.
Well, that's where my question's at the moment. How many events does it take to have a Mongolian team win a proper playoffs match? It's kind of like a joke, but like there's
sure.
How many? Yeah. Anyway,
Well, I have a question. Would you consider the win over Liquid a proper playoff
Yeah,
win?
I think that was a good one. That was their
Yeah.
probably their best one so far, considering they're quite limited. They're few and far between. But it's like, how many more events do they need before they can start performing as to what because they have the flaw that Yanko's saying that the Falcons and stuff don't have.
Right.
They're the ones who are consistently the Mongols only bounce back from after Bucharest and Lisbon not going so well, but they bounce back into a playoffs for another arena. So, yeah.
Well, here's a question, because we kind of just, it's not lazy, but it's just kind of like we fall into it of talking about these teams as if they're inexperienced on the stage. Like, when are we done giving them the inexperience pass? That's the question, I
So
guess.
how
'Cause
Mongols are done with that, I feel
well,
like.
Aurora should be as well. They were in the playoffs of Copenhagen Major last year. They've been doing.
Yeah.
They've had like a year of making playoffs in stage games. Not all of them in
stage
arenas.
games.
Not all of them in arenas, but they've gone deep and they've got really experienced players
Yeah,
on that team.
Katowice was bad, right? Katowice wasn't a good look with the
Cluj, they
Mongols
got
there.
beat by Falcons in the quarterfinal.
But
I
you
think.
can't tell me Major, Woxic, and Zantaras are not experienced. Like that's where I look at it and I'm like, they have a core of players that have been around forever.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Also, I think age. I had this thing with
I saw that,
agency.
yeah, it was good.
Over it. It's like it matters in some. For example, these are not young guys as well. These are 27, 8
Zantaras is
year old
29.
players.
Zantaras, yeah.
So they're matured as humans as well. Where it shouldn't have, even if let's say they were a little bit inexperienced on the stage with this line, whatever, it shouldn't affect them as much, right? Like it's obviously going to affect someone more who is 18, 19 years old, who hasn't been around as much. It's just like everything you experience it in a different way. So I think that's also what doesn't get him out of a bind. But now someone is going to say, oh yeah, but then that's the perfect excuse for the Mongols because they're so young. Well, sure, to some extent, but that's where I also don't believe that age matters all that much, because after a couple of times, you either have it or you don't have it, right? I think there's no that much, young and old players. There's like good and bad players, and that's it. I think the problem with why you don't have that many star players that are 30 plus is twofold. First of all, guys who are now 30 plus have not been, when they were 20, 21, 22, 25, have been putting in the same amount of work or haven't been working consistently on their game, which is why you see them drop off. And the problem with Counter-Strike and why people fall off as they get older isn't that their reaction speed gets slower and that their, aim has lost its edge and that's why they suck. No, it's everything else. Look how many times the game has changed. Look how much different rifles were buffed than nerfed. Look at the movement. Look at how you peak people now. Like if you see, let's say, Nico play and how he clears angles, he does it differently now than he did in CSGO, for example, 3 years ago. And he did it 3 years ago differently than how he did it 6 years ago, because the meta always changes and you need to be able to keep up with it, right? For some people, priorities start shifting and they don't put as much time in the game, and maybe it's things like that, right? So I think that's one of the reasons, and I think you'll see more of players in their 30s who won't just be IGLs that are on the best teams, like who'll be on other roles as well, because those are the guys who've been constantly working on their craft and adapting and,
Well, I think also for the first time in like Counter-Strike history, you can actually, extend this as a career into your 30s too. Like that's a big change as well. So we kind of get to experiment of what's going to happen in your like previously, as soon as you got to the point where you wanted to buy a house or have a kid or get married, it was like you don't have the financials in Counter-Strike to actually support it. And that's changed over the past decade. So, yeah, we get to see some of these guys actually try and push into their 30s and mid-30s in a way that we haven't been able to see people in the past able to dedicate that level of time to it. So
how many players are we saying this about, though, right? Because I think one of the issues that you're going to have is not what you're saying yet, because I think that there are some players at the moment who are demonstrating that. I think that some of them now who are in their late 20s, going into their early 30s soon, will be demonstrating that then. But it feels like some of these orgs are going to, you're not going to take old players, right? You're going to...
Yes.
So that's a problem that could come into play here. Like you need somebody from Rain to bounce back at the moment and start delivering to be reaffirming that point in the now, because other than Rain, who else is in their 30s who's not an in-game leader at the moment?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. There's not that many players, but I mean, I think when you see guys like Nico, Elige, some of these other guys, when they get into their like early 30s, I think they'll still be able to play. They won't have to become IGLs to keep a spot on a tier 1 team. I still think they'll be good enough to just play their positions. And I will say, what was it? I don't know if it slipped my mind. Another thing about here's the thing, because a lot of people in that thread were like, oh yeah, but they are IGLs, so that's the only reason, that's the only way how players over 30 can be. Yeah, but Apex plays star positions. Apex plays Yardanuke, he plays Konon, Mirage, right? Like, he plays the same spots Nico plays. So what is the problem then? Like, what's the issue there? Kerrigan also, I mean, sure, he's not amazing mechanically, but he has games where he saves his team's ass.
Yeah, has some really impactful entries. Yeah. No, I think the problem is a lot of this proof is in the pudding, right? So we're waiting for it to get there, which is still a couple of years off overall.
Takes years, some would say.
Yeah, and then the concern as well, if like orgs are only looking for younger players, then you need to be one of the huge names like your Nikos for that to be getting the opportunity to play late. I think some of the other names won't.
As well, was it Blade who said he wouldn't look at anyone over 25 or something like last year? Or am I imagining that? There was a coach who came out and said that he wouldn't look at players over like a certain age.
My memory's no good, Jason. I can't help you.
I
know that recently the G2 CEO has been talking in the interview how they were trying to make the team younger, but I don't know if he made that quote that you said.
Yeah. No, I'm pretty sure it was Blade, but I could be wrong. But yeah, I mean, we've heard those little rumblings of, we're looking at younger players. And by the way, I think that's a smart way to go about it, especially during a game change. You give me 2 or 3 more years, and I'd say kind of look for some veteran presence in certain scenarios. But I think at the change of a game, going younger to me feels like it's always like a smarter long-term decision.
No, I don't get me wrong. Like, I don't think now you should be looking for 27-year-old guys out there. It's, of course, and one of the reasons, again, is because we've literally had a game change where it's just sometimes hard to get rid of old habits, like you've been doing something one way for 5 years, 7 years. Now it's a different game, and that way is no good anymore. Like, you have to change your mindset, and that takes time. Not everyone is able to do it, right? And, for someone like not even Donk, but whoever is the next kid that shows up, CS2 is going to be the first game he touches, right? And the mechanics are going to be natural to him and all these little things. And, of course, like in anything else, it's the newer generation that will always be better than the previous one. But for me, it's just when people talk about longevity and if this guy, anyone past 30 can only be an IGL, I don't believe that. And I think, like you pointed out, Jason, one of the main reasons for that is like it just there wasn't an opportunity for guys before. It didn't make sense. It didn't compute. I think it does now. And I think 5 years from now, actually, let's do it for the 1000th episode of Talking Counter. We'll look back. Still looking for sponsors by then. We'll look back and we'll see how many 30-plus-year-old star players we have.
Hey, can I throw a little spice into the mix? Because I've been excited all week when you guys are at to hear your guys' thoughts on this. The FURIA changes. They've dropped chelo. They've brought in Molodoy, an opera from Kazakhstan. They've dropped skullz. They've brought in Yekindar. They've taken Fallen off the op and made him a rifle IGL. And there's a lot to unpack there. And I mean, I'll start this by just saying, I guess this felt like a fucking desperate scatter shot to begin with, but then when the report came out that they were talking to Fur and moving forward with Fur until Yekindar's plans with Perfecto and Simple fell through, so then they got Yekindar, it just makes this seem even more like we're just rolling with it. We've got no game plan. We're just kind of going with whatever presents itself.
I think it shows you how bad things have gotten, right? That this is the move that they're making. I don't know why it's not possible to build the proper Brazilian team at the moment, which is what you'd want FURIA to try and represent, or especially for Quesarado, who's decided to stay and is, pissing away the career because he's had some bigger and better opportunities. So the fact that it's gotten to this just seems kind of, it's sad in a way, really. So I look in terms of what they've gone for. Well, if that's going to be the direction in the future, they're going the same way as like an NIP. It's like moving away from the big reason that your fan base is enjoyed, which tends to be the national pride of it, right? Like,
which seems like a really difficult thing to pull off for a Brazilian organization specifically.
yeah, I don't think this is the move. Like, but at the same time, if the buyouts to get the Brazilian players that you'd want are just crazy high, then maybe you're left with no choice because, like, well, I think that if FURIA wanted to be the best Brazilian team, then they obviously need to pick up some of these Pain players, but Pain continue to make changes as well. So now we've even got DGT on that roster with Big Uzera because you need Big Uzera, you need NQZ essentially for FURIA.
And you need to be doing better than the other Brazilian teams.
Well, yeah, that would help too. But it's just, I guess this is better than just disappearing, though. I guess, right? Like trying to cobble something together than just like falling into irrelevancy. I don't know.
For me, it also tells me that they have no expectations for this major, right?
Yes.
Like whatsoever. Because when you hear them talking to Fur, I mean, that's getting a vibes, not a vibes guy necessarily, but that's like a cheap option. Where you have something cool happening around the team. There's going to be a lot of content around, eyes on it, all fall.
Another emotional
Fur
pump
United, Fur is whatever, like a streamer or something now in Brazil. So you've had that whole element. It's like they're not hoping for any results. Like this move didn't happen to get results because once the first thing didn't happen, you're getting a Yekindar, and one of the main reasons is he speaks the same language. He can speak the same language as Molodoy, so that, you know, when everyone else is speaking Brazilian, this kid doesn't feel left out. The two of them can, you know, speak Russian or whatever. It's like, all right, I guess, yeah, that is true. They could do that, you know, but
like,
it's funny.
Why are they doing that?
When you ask this question, Jason, is like, it's as if they looked what was the worst thing that Astralis did and the worst thing for Team Liquid and decided to combine them in their team. You know, switching their op IGL to rifle IGL and then bringing a guy that didn't work out, you know, for Team Liquid. So, yeah, I don't really care anymore. Like, I just can't. You know, also for all of these Brazilian teams, it's like until you make some moves and you get the players that you're supposed to get.
I'm just checking.
I know that it's not necessarily just up to them. They're all fucking stupid, right? Like, no one wants to let anyone have them, so they'll just all be mediocre forever. I guess that works out, but I don't care. None of them is going to do anything. Pain is not going to do anything special. FURIA isn't. MIBR isn't. Legacy isn't. Like, who else is there? I don't know. I'm forgetting maybe someone.
It feels like all the Brazilian teams have their ceilings set.
Every team needs 2 roster changes to do something. Not even one. No one's missing one player. Every team is missing at least 2 players, which is crazy, right? And I think also if you're, let's say, FURIA, right? I don't even, I want to say the biggest org out of all of them, but I think Pain is actually really big as well. I don't know how.
I think they're bigger in other games than they are in
how big the
Counter-Strike.
gap is between the two, but, you know, just do it one time, right? Because imagine if this era of mediocrity for Brazilian teams, which has been going on now for
since COVID started,
2-3 years, you know, more than that. I don't know, right? Because I'm thinking, Rio Major was a bright spot for FURIA with all of that. But that was a flash in the pan. That's all it was, right? Like, so you can even say 5 years, 6 years before, since they were like, could be a contender or whatever. Like, imagine if you did shell out whatever it is that they want for Insani and for whoever, right? Or Big Uzira and NQZ, like Chad said, whoever it is. And you actually become a contender. How many fans would you get then? How many eyes would you get on your team? How many jerseys would you sell? What are all the cool activations that you could do then, right?
Yeah.
Problem is no one wants to take that risk, right? Because they already get like decent people following them because people in Brazil are crazy about CS and all of that stuff. But imagine if we talked about FURIA as a contender right next to Falcons, Vitality, Spirit, whoever, right? Like, you almost want it to happen that way because anything else is just stopgaps, right? It's just like, okay, this doesn't get me excited in any way whatsoever. Sure, could they have slightly better results and make playoffs here and there? Yeah. Are they going to win a tournament? No. And that's what everyone is in this for, right? Any team, no matter how small they are, they have in their heads at the very least, some sort of a long-term vision, long-term strategy. How will they be able to get there in 2 years' time, 5 years' time, right? Like when we had Gamer Legion show up and then play the playoffs, and of course they're going to get blown out the water by the Falcons, it makes sense. But look at where Mouse was 5 years ago. They were also a team that FaZe would just farm. Then they managed to get Carrigan when FaZe removed them, had some good results, won a couple of tournaments, and most importantly, had the vision to invest into an academy team, to invest into their staff, to pick the right people, to give those people enough control to make good things happen. And now you have, I think, you could make two top 20 teams worth of just players who have been through Mao's Academy, and they've sort of made a blueprint for how you can get it done. And now they're a contender. And even they still are not a team that's the best in the world or that lifts the big trophies all the time. They're actually still chasing that, right? And Gamer Legion, you get that feel off of what Mouse is doing. Just they have a lesser, smaller budget, and they're doing it on a smaller scale, right? But that's who they're hoping to become. And then, of course, on the other side, you have organizations like FaZe Clan and Falcons and G2 who, in theory, can then buy the player that Gamer Legion or Mouse develops, and that's how they augment their roster, and that's how they become, contender, and that's how they build their teams. So you have those two different things, and these Brazilian teams have neither. They don't have good enough academy structures where they develop talent and find young players that then play on their main team and become really good, and they're not splashing the money around to grab players from other teams, and that's why they're going to be mediocre.
Well, I guess if you're going to take any positive away from this FURIA move, I the only one that I can kind of think up in my head, I'm actually kind of excited for this just because it's like a car crash. It's like I want to watch Molodoy and Yekindar in this team because it just feels like it's going to be a mess. Remember when they tried to switch and bring Junior in as an AWPer and switch to English, and that went terribly? We're kind of doing it again now, except even more complicated. Fallen switching to a rifle as an IGL after we just watched Cadian struggle with it. I think the only positive I have for FURIA right now with these moves is surely this frees up some space to be flexible after the major when the dust settles and you see where all the Brazilian teams, and I don't expect it. I'm hoping
I think they're going to go back Brazilian.
I'm trying to find a positive, and if I think long term, I think Molodoy probably on some kind of like a rookie contract, academy contract, probably pretty cheap to get. I think Yekindar coming in from Team Liquid, he was on their bench. I'm sure they were willing to give him that loan for fucking peanuts, just in the hope that someone would take him off him that maybe has a good performance and they can sell him. So I have to feel like you've made these moves relatively cheap. And now you've freed up a little bit of space and a little bit of economy and a little bit of salary to make a move when the major ends. But my question mark is, I don't know what the long-term play is anymore because I think Molodoy was fully bought out of his contract, or is now
either way the
fully
road
on
back
FURIA?
is well.
Because
Either way, the road back is still hard, right? Because let's say you want to go Brazilian, you can't even go Brazilian after the next window because it means that you'd be stuck with Fallen, Yuri, and Cacerado, and you probably don't want Fallen. So it's going to be a long road back to being Brazilian. It feels like now they're going the other way.
That's what I mean. I don't know what the strategy is.
But I don't know. Isn't it with these teams that just make these stupid decisions? Don't you guys just check out? I just go, who cares? Fuck it. When they make a good one, then we'll talk about it. If they have a result, we'll talk about it. Otherwise, I don't want to see them be bad.
I'm just curious about I'm curious about what the plan is for FURIA. Because you're right. You do have kind of two options. Do you go back to being Brazilian, or do you keep Molodoy and start transitioning into more international rosters? Does Yekindar play well and Molodoy play well, and then it makes you feel more certain about going international?
Here's what's going to happen. You're going to
go
international. You're going to try it for a year and a half. It's not going to work. Then you're going to go, okay, we have to go back Brazilians. Then you're going to have to start at the bottom of the barrel because you didn't fucking build anything. Whereas if you started building now and taking some risks and making the big moves, then you wouldn't have to return to it in a couple of years' time.
But isn't that exciting to you? The potential for someone to make a terrible fucking decision and waste a year and a half of time?
No,
isn't that interesting at some level? To where you can point at it and be like, how have you decided to make this decision of all decisions? That's what I want to know.
I don't wish that on anybody, Jason.
I don't either, but it's self-inflicted, and I'm just gonna watch.
Yeah,
I'm gonna
that doesn't tickle my pickle for entertainment. That just makes me go sad, man.
Well,
That's
cucking
sad,
somebody's general managing misfortune gets my pickle fucking going. So let's
you know a lot about cucking when you Jason. Jason, I got a question for you. Got a question for you right now, mate. Like the gorilla, do you think you could beat off 100 men?
Yeah, man. Gun to my head, I could beat off 100 men.
You could beat off, yeah, just like the gorilla.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you hear my my shit talk with the press conference with Henry?
I did.
And,
I tuned into those. Those were good clips. Those were nice.
Louis Phillips'
that was
line
a great
inspired.
line. I like that you brought the joke full circle.
Yeah, had to bring it in. Really
how many people caught it? Did anyone?
I hope most.
Yeah.
I hope people really Hugo and Henry like almost burst into laughing as soon as I said it because they didn't know it was coming. So that's when you know you got them. That's when you know you really got them.
You stuck the landing.
Then I came out of the coffin and fucking absolutely destroyed my voice. So
I won't lie to you. I haven't gone back and watched the caches. How was it?
Don't need to watch the actual match.
Yeah, I watched the build-up material.
Yeah, that's what you really need
I didn't see the live experience.
Did you see the funeral?
I didn't see the funeral.
Wow.
That was the best part.
I've got some guys.
I'll link you the funeral. Hold up.
And then his reason.
You guys have to. That show match started at midnight my time. I wasn't.
Look, Jason, are you dedicated to the cause or not? Here.
I woke up at 4 a.m. to watch the final.
You don't even need the audio really, but Alex is doing a eulogy.
He's doing a eulogy.
So you'll see it starts with Freya coming out of the smoke.
Sure.
She's got a candle in her hand there, a flower in her hand as well. She's walking out. Alex is doing the eulogy behind her. Harry Russell, Hugo B. Byron carrying a coffin.
What's in the coffin, they say?
Well, I don't know, but you've also got Mac May. You've got you got Conky there carrying it. You got Trace Thundersaranthus. You never want Trace to be carrying your casket while you're still alive, Jason, because you know he's a troll.
He's never a pallbearer. I have it in my will that he's not allowed to be one.
You know he's just going to play silly buggers, mate.
I know. He's going to drop a corner and be like, "Oh, oops, my bad."
Steele's the last man carrying, right? He's the last man on the rungs, and then they're walking down this narrow aisle to get to the stage. And making sure they take the pace out of it. You know, the crowd's playing along. They're pretending to be sad.
Alex in the priest outfit as well. Does he have the white collar?
Yeah, he's full dressed up. Then there's on the screens flashing up. There's when I was back in Perth, I got pictures of myself from when I was a kid, and I scanned them in and sent them to Freya so they could edit together. You know, a bit of a montage of pictures from when I was a child.
Sure.
Shirtless
there. Yeah. It was a shirtless picture. It was good. It was up on the big screen as well in the middle.
Fucking weird ass thing to say.
Look, I'm just watching the video. I'm just doing like stream of consciousness shit. He was shirtless. What do you want from me?
That's fine, Jason.
I want you to not mention it.
So they carry me all the way. They put me down the stage, and then, you know, Henry's not happy. You know, he's come all the way, Jason. He wants
and his competition.
He wants satisfaction.
Dead. Yeah.
So that means you didn't see me coming out of the coffin.
I'm watching it right now, dog.
No. You need to watch this one.
Jeez, how many fucking segments did you guys?
You only need to watch the first like 15 seconds of this one. That's all you need.
All right.
And then you're probably steady.
And then you're up to date on the caches.
Yeah, then you're up to date on the caches. But look at the energy coming out of the coffin, Jason. You can't.
That is a lot. Did you practice that?
No. Well, we practiced getting put down, but I didn't want to break the coffin on the open. So, yeah, you could say I also got hit with a metal chair.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw that clip on the subreddit. That was good. You nailed it. You did really well with it. Really absorbed the hit.
Oh, the DHL thing that we did aired as well.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys called that. If you thought that was any good.
I haven't caught it yet.
Oh man!
You showed it to me. I watched it like before it was out.
I had a friend in town this weekend. I was busy for like 4 days straight.
His kitchen sink's not working, Yanko. He's got no whole water unit.
There's nothing going on in his house.
There's a smashed window, and he's got a friend, and he didn't keep up with any of the content.
You know what that means, Chad? He's been perpetually like drunk for the last 4 days. You know, so even if he did see it, he probably has forgotten about it by now.
And at the same time, he's beating up.
I think it had funny moments. I think the problem is just like you're trying to do an Office episode in 9 minutes, right? Like it all felt. Yeah, I think if it could have been longer, it would have worked much better because you don't even have time to sort of set up some of the jokes and the punchlines and whatnot.
Yeah, there's probably a shitload more footage that they could edit in for it to be longer as well. But we'll see how the next episodes go. There's still two and a half more episodes to come, so there'll be one in Cologne, I think.
Ooh, there's a whole series.
One in Dallas, I think, even. Dallas comes first.
Yeah.
But we'll see what happens there.
What else have we got going on? Are we good? There hasn't been too much since your guys' last episode. Donk can match Saiwu, but Kiyosuke might dominate him. That feels like some magic.
We got to get the kid's name right, don't we? Is it
Kiyosuke?
Kyosuke?
Kyosuke?
Because if he's going to be the next big thing and we're all calling him the wrong name, so
Yeah,
we
yeah.
need someone to find out. We need to like send him an email or something.
I figured we would get the name down as soon as he got on, like, his computer.
Yeah, but I think we should be taking
So
a
how
little
are we
bit
doing
more
it?
respect.
How are we doing it? Kiyosuke?
Kyosuke, right?
Kyosuke?
Yeah. That's the one.
Kyosuke. All right.
We also
got it.
have rivals happening where it's like 4 good teams and 4 not very good teams.
Well, no, it isn't. Well, actually, no, that's fine because FaZe they're not so good team, even though they were one of the VRS teams at the time of invitation. Vitality, Spirit, Mouse, Falcons. That's exciting. I'd say they're the best 4 in the world right now. What else?
The question is, would we say that because of the circumstances in which Vitality is playing this tournament, that this is Spirit's tournament to lose?
No.
Because they've had so much time off?
Well, I think they're obviously hungry coming in with over 30 days off. You have to think about what maybe some of their problems were before in the losses. So then you think, okay, well, what have they been working on in the time, right? Have they just been refining more of the same? There was a health issue as to why they didn't go to Melbourne, right? So
Yeah.
I don't think they were even practicing the whole time because of that. There was an interview that Striker did with Magix, and I think Striker was trying to get a rough idea of how long they had been back at practice, and I think it was something just like around 2 weeks. So that essentially means they had 2 weeks off. So yeah, only really been getting back on it recently. Vitality do come in jet lagged, but so do the Falcons and Mouse. I'm not even going to bring FlyQuest in the conversation because it's not the same conversation.
All right, no, this is also one of those tournaments where 3 teams make it into the next stage out of 4.
Each group.
Like,
Yeah.
give me a fucking break, bro. Like, so if you're, Falcons, you only need to not lose to FlyQuest.
No, and you're
If
in the
you even
playoffs.
lose to FaZe, and if you're, Vitality is not going to lose to Wildcard, but let's say they do, they only have to beat Pain, and then they're in the play. Oh, sick. Yeah.
So,
Fucking
yeah.
great.
And it's
Out of the
Studio
8
now.
teams, 6 teams go through. So 75% of the teams go through into the next stage.
I think if
Wow.
it was crowd,
Great.
right, and it was against the other best teams, then it would have a bit more. But now that it's studio, it's kind of lost a bit of the shine. I don't like the format in general, I to be honest.
Yeah.
But I've been loud about that since they were given the exception to do the format.
Loud and proud.
Yeah, but yeah, there's a lot of things that made this event, but it's still an event with big names, so that's the thing. And Vitality can still lose their streak here. I think that one of the things you were talking about before, Yanko, that I was resonating with is I guess the management of the calendar, because you look at it for this squad, they've been able to skip the right events to allow them to be in good form, and winning obviously helps because then you get the VRS points. Like, so the year starts, they go to Blast Bounty, they lose to Eternal Fire, then they go into Katowice, they win it, and then they have 2 weeks off while Cluj is on, then they go to EPL, and they don't even go for the first week of EPL, right? So they're for the second week, so they have about 3 weeks off. So you get time to go home, actually have some downtime, and then get back to practice. They win EPL, then like, okay, well, now we can win the Grand Slam. They have to go straight from EPL into Blast Open Spring. So studio event into arena event, that's a good ramp. You'd prefer it that way than the other way, right?
Yeah.
You'd hate to go from like the adrenaline dump of winning in Australia to then going in a studio event, because that's also going to be hard to get you started again. Then they have, after that, they have Bucharest off, so they have another like 3 weeks off, right, essentially. And then they come to Melbourne. Then they win Melbourne, they win the Grand Slam. So they've been good at also like setting targets, it feels like. Good time off, like to refresh, to rejuvenate, to be focused, to be hungry to play. And then now this is going to be, I would say, the toughest event for them to have played out of the stretch so far. And I agree with the sentiment you had before, Yanko. It's not really the worst thing in the world if they do lose a game or whatever here. But if I'm the team, I would go, okay, let's beat Liquid Streak, right? Like let's set that as our next goal. Let's just continue with whatever new biggest and best challenges available. Let's make that our driving factor.
I mean, this is where it really helps if you've been able to establish, a good culture, and if the players get along outside of the game too, because that makes everything else so much easier, right? It makes being on the road easier if you're having a good time with your teammates. Obviously, you're playing well and you're winning, so your work feels better
It's
too.
easier right now.
Yeah, exactly. When things are going well. So yeah, sure, they'll be a little bit tired and all of that, but because they are great at having the correct mood and bringing the right energy in games, they'll still have the right approach, it feels like, and they'll still should be able to have a good result here. I don't think they're going to bomb out. Someone's going to 2-0 them just because they only just won the Grand Slam, because, the organization sort of and what they're trying to build there, that you can't have it both ways, right? You don't go on this great run only for that to happen. You just aren't built that way, if that makes sense. So yeah, and also for what you were talking about, I cannot emphasize enough how big of a difference it is when you're able to give your players time off completely, right? Compared to having a lighter practice but online. Like being able to tell people, hey, you have 5 days off, no practice, so they can spend time with their friends, family, whatever, maybe go on a mini trip if they want to, like take their girlfriend somewhere nice, do something nice, just disconnect from the game. It's a huge difference, because otherwise that's been the main thing for me when I've been looking at coaching versus being talent, is like when you're on a team, even when you're back home from an event,
still grinding.
Yes.
The grind still continues, constantly. So being able to give everyone that little bit of time off, and then coming back into work and zoning in on that and preparing for your next tournament, I mean, it's huge. So I don't think it's a coincidence, just a simple coincidence that they're doing this and having good results.
They would need to win 2 more series, Jason, to tie Liquid. They're at 21 at the moment. If they beat Wildcard today, they're at 22. And then they'll probably play against Mouse for 23. They'll tie Liquid. The thing with the NIP streak is it's a legend among legends. That's
we
the thing
put
with
that in
one.
its category of its own. It's not
Yeah.
worth the comparison for sure. Well,
Yeah.
Mouse to tie it is going to be a tough one.
Yes, I definitely think so.
Really tough one.
I think I will tell you though, and I don't know, you probably don't care about this, but if you just looked at LAN series, BO3, BO5s, Vitality is second behind NIP already. So
because you're best of ones.
They've already beat Liquid's record if you filter out BO1s in online games.
And Liquid would have been behind Astralis if that's the only thing you look at. Well, one of those Astralis.
I think the interesting thing with doing that is that's why it's hard to compare to the NIP time too, right?
A lot of best of ones in there.
NIP is at 28, and Vitality now is at 19.
28 best of 3s or best of 5s.
Yes.
Okay.
Out of that win streak that NIP had, 28 of those were BO3s, BO5s.
But I think there could be an argument to be made. I understand that it's easier to win one map than it is to win 2 or 3 in a series, but it also goes the other way. It would be easier to lose one of those. So I think measuring that gets a bit weird.
Yeah, I'm not doing it to diminish the other streaks or Liquid streak or anything. It's more to showcase, like you just say match,
elitism.
right? But you look at that it's all, but that you constantly have to keep doing it like that. I guess, I didn't really think of it the way you said it, Chad. It's like easier to get upset in a best of 1 than in a best of 3. But in any case, the streak has been pretty impressive. I mean, I still
think it's funny that, like, looking back on that Liquid run in 2019, how incredible those 60 days were.
That was like the best sprint in Counter-Strike history.
I can't think of a single better 2-month stretch of any team where you've just won. Actually, I guess maybe Vitality, but I mean, they've just been so utterly dominant. The Grand Slam. Yeah, it's funny looking back on that and just being like, holy shit, those guys established so many fucking records in that run.
Yeah, and for me, the craziest thing on that graphic that we kept pulling up with the streaks is that in the list of top 10, there's 4 different Astralis streaks from 2018, 2019.
It's so stupid,
right?
Isn't
And
it?
even if you include, even with this one that I'm saying, only best of 3s, best of 5s, where it's like they actually, with just a little bit of luck or losing a game at a different time, could have even beaten NIP's streak when it comes to series, which is just sort of mental to think about. Because I'll tell you here, these 4 streaks combined are 24, 36. It's like 53, right? Obviously, you
okay.
can't combine them all together. But if you just combine,
Like
you
two of
know,
them.
there's 2 of them. For 2 of them, it says 2019, and then one of them is 1819. So it crossed New Year's there. Like if you just combined one of those or like 2 of those, it would be 29 series, which would be number 1 in terms of best of 3s, best of 5s on land, which is nuts, right? The level of dominance. Also,
Yeah. Well,
funnily enough, the exact time when I was a coach.
We don't talk about sad for you. We don't talk about that Astralis dominance run in the context of like the maps, but thinking back, I mean, 2018, they were like the best team in the world on like 3 or 4 maps out of the pool, and like probably the second best team on the other 3 or 4 maps. It was unreasonable as fuck.
I think what was clear though when they were the best team was the shift in the way that the game was being played, or like the level of dial on the nuances, right? Or like so, it stood out a bit more, I think. And that's why any of these teams who have had these little patches for the last couple of years, they've been the best team of the time. But it's hard to compare to just the level of influence that Australis had on the entire game, and even still the way it's played today, right? So, you know, since Australis, what have we had? We had that Liquid run, we had
Online
FaZe.
era.
Well, yeah, Na'Vi FaZe, and now, I don't know, Spirits was a bit sporadic. I wouldn't say there was a period of dominance for Spirit, would you guys?
No, I would say they were probably the team to beat for a decent period, but it wasn't like that they were dominant or anything.
They were good
like
at the
that.
start of the year and at the end of the year last year. But
Yeah, the bookenders.
In the middle, you know, it was more G2 and Navi. G2 in 23 winning Cairo and Cologne, but then not, you know, like it was teams taking turns in a way. It felt.
Well, Vitality could have a flawless season, right? So they have this, then they go into Dallas, then they have 2 weeks off or 3 weeks off until the major.
Has a team ever had a flawless season? Like won every event they competed in for like the first half of a year?
I don't know.
I don't think so.
But it's also crazy because, like, obviously they haven't just gone to everything under the sun, which is what we're praising. Yeah. And even in that run of events that I'm talking about there, they still get a nice like chunk of break. So
and they're skipping Astana as well.
Yeah, so you finish Rivals, and then you get 2 weeks off or like a week and a bit off while Astana's on. Then you go to Dallas, and then you finish Dallas,
and you hang out in America for a week, and then you have 3 weeks in Austin.
Well, you probably wouldn't. You'd go back. You'd finish Dallas, and you'd go back because you could go back to Europe for.
Is it
2.5 weeks?
It's 10 days between Dallas and the major, isn't it? I don't think it's that long.
They're in stage 3.
Oh, that's right.
So you can go. You can actually go later. So they would go home. I would go home. You're going to get better practice. The only thing that you risk is the jet lag, I guess.
Can I say this whole VRS thing? I'm not.
It's not perfect.
I don't want to dive into like the details and the rankings or everything, but I'll just say I found the RMRs way more exciting of a process.
Well, obviously, it was LAN.
Well, yeah, but like as we got closer to the major, there was like exciting moments. This is kind of cool because it can like attribute that excitement to like one match at an event or a specific event where so much is going to be on the lines as we get used to it down the stretch. But the actual process of like going through the RMR was so much more exciting in terms, not even just the LAN, just having the event where you stepped into it and you're like, here's 16 teams, 8 of them are eliminated and 8 of them move on. Like that's an exciting.
I don't know, but aren't we trying to attribute more value elsewhere? Like, I think that there's a couple of problems with the MRQs.
It's never going to hit the same peak, I don't think.
Yeah, but that's the same like conversation you could have about the minors, but before that, or then the major qualifier that we had that was like the one I played in 2015, where it was 16 team broken up into 4 GSL groups, and it was everybody. Like, it wasn't just regional based, right? It was that's what the major qualifier became. Like before we've gone into now this fucking 32 team thing. I think that the MRQ needs some changes for sure. I think the spots need to be less. I think that more spots need to be determined from the VRS. I think that like we discussed previously.
Oh, you mean the number of spots given at the MRQ is not ideal?
Yeah, more of the spots need to go to the actual ranking itself.
Okay.
And then like have North America and South America play in one event. Don't have them split. Have Asia all play together. I would be fine with making those lands. For European, just you can do it online. You should do it online, but you could get away with it doing it online because I think you have the best conditions.
I think European is probably the region where you could attribute most of the invites to VRS because they have so many lands throughout the year that you probably have a more accurate ranking, I would imagine.
Yeah, but even with Asia, I think, right, like I guess FlyQuest had some really bad results. I don't know how far it put them down the ranking. I think they also mismanaged. I think they didn't realize if they went to that Aussie defrag event and just got land wins, how much it would have actually helped their points. So I think some bad learning or some missed learnings this season. Sorry, Jason.
No, I don't want to go down this road because it is into the details that I wanted to. But doesn't it make more sense for FlyQuest? Like, is there a world in which it makes more sense for FlyQuest to just play at events in Australia and like China and Asia and not even do European events?
Well,
like, isn't there a world in which they're like, why don't we just go kind of farm and get wins at these?
They don't really play European events though, right? They'll only play like if they get invited to a tier 1 event.
Well, they played a couple to start this year when they still got the invite.
Yeah, but you're not going to turn down those invites. I understand what you're saying.
I know,
there,
and I've made that argument with other teams as well. But it's like when it comes to the VRS, like it almost feels counterintuitive that it would make more sense to stay.
Well, that's
regional.
if you just want to play a team who can occasionally get like an upset victory, or be a team who can actually compete.
Yeah.
If you just want to be a team and get an upset victory all the time, then yeah, you could just play in your local events and really not get any better, and then maybe you have a good day.
Yeah.
But if you want to get better, you are going to have to play in the big events, and you're going to have to be spending more time in Europe. But now they'll have to split their time between both, right? They're going to have to go to...
Well, now you don't get the invite, so yeah, you have to do the regional events to get back to being able to spend that time in Europe.
Yeah, they're going to some like land in Asia, right? After this event is the Hero Esports Asian Champion League, which has got like Tyloo, Rare Atom, Lin Vision, Chinggis Warriors, the Huns, Gigi Hao, and Nomads, right? So they're going to play in that from like May the 6th. So as soon as this event ends, they fly. They went Australia to Copenhagen, back to China. That's kind of going to be their stretch of events, and that's because they need those wins like you're talking about. It's probably good for the confidence too.
Yeah.
Not always getting matched up like as seed fucking 16 versus seed number 1. So there's a couple of bits and pieces there that could be all right. But yeah, I don't know. I think that you also... Comparing those numbers, you're also talking about worse teams as well, Jason, because you have more teams who are already qualified for the major. So sometimes you'd have bigger names playing in the RMR than what would be possible now because a lot more of the teams are already locked in. So that could have an effect on why people were tuning in or not. There's room for work, right? Even room for work with the game. I don't know if you guys have been seeing some of the stuff on Reddit, like, with delayed sounds or delayed this or delayed that. We're a work in progress, guys, and that's how everyone should always be in life. You know, brick at a time, a day at a time. Make an adjustment. Make a change.
Steps. Yeah. I think we should end on that positive note.
Yeah?
Yeah. On an uplift, I think.
Okay.
It's a nice place.
I think I might have my voice back by the end of the week. That'd be nice.
You've got to go grind some practice. I'm going to stop this.
Yeah.